And hello, everyone, to show number 64. Look, we're all smiling. Of this week in hospitality digital marketing with your co-host. My name is Lauren Gray from Hospitality Digital Marketing, and Mr. Tim Peter from Tim Peter and Associates, and Mr. Robert Cole from Rock Cheetah, who last week I said was Robert St. Ange.
We got to get that page set up, timpeter.com/Robert St. Ange.
Yeah, and I want to get this out of the way first. Robert, I interrupt the hell out of you. Do you know that? Because I play back these things to write notes, and out of all the people I interrupt, you're the most peaceful one. You're like, you'll stop talking. Tim and Ed will just keep talking. But I apologize in advance that I interrupt you so damn much on this. I'm going to try to shut up more often. And
you know what the key is, of course, is just don't stop.
Yes. When you're on a roll, just keep on the roll.
Ed and Tim have been watching the debate candidates.
Yeah, exactly.
The debates and figure, I've got talking points. I'm going to get them out.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I just don't have much to say. So.
Oh, no, you have tons to say. Problem is, I don't let you say enough of it. I sent out a whole pile of suggested topics. I feel like that TV show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's the show where the points don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
You set out the points, and they don't matter. We're going to talk about
they don't matter. Now, we are missing one of the famous quad here, and that is Mr. Edward St. Ange. He did have some other obligations. He said he's either at best potentially late, but he hopes he can at least make it. But he forewarned us that he might not be able to make it at all. Yes, Edward St. Ange. And we are still lean in the world of guests because it's still high and deep in the budget season. And so I'm finding it very challenging. A lot of them are being very polite about it. They're just like, hey, I'm terribly sorry. I'd love to be on it, but I can't make it because I'm still knee deep in budget reviews. So
and soon to move into conference season.
Right. Yeah. November prime time, right?
Which we do seem to find things to talk about. Shockingly, whether there's guests or not, we somehow find a way to fill the time.
We don't need those stinking guests.
We don't need those stinking guests. All right, I want to throw out a topic first off that is one that I'm tired of. I just thought I'd throw out the nasty one I want to put out. The hero's journey, a human framework for building modern travel brands. I am so tired of hearing about the human journey on this thing. It seems like somewhere 2 years ago, somebody said this is a way of explaining the business profile of our guest experience, and it has been beaten to death in conferences. And here I see it rises on your little head again in a Skift article about this is the Campbell 12-step, the 12 steps of a storyline,
right.
And I'm like, how in God's green earth is that still considered an applicable representation of a business modeling strategy? Maybe you guys can give me some calm down method to this, because it doesn't bother it. Anyway, sorry. I'm gonna put the link up while y'all are talking.
I think you should elaborate on your last comment.
So I'll give my point of view, and I don't get too hung up on the Campbell thing specifically. I think it's a metaphor. Clearly it is critical we are aware of the guest journey, right? Regardless of whether we're using, some storytelling mechanism or things along those lines. I'm very big on personas. I'm very big on customer journey. I'm very big on behavioral mapping, in terms of where guests are at any given point in the process. When we talk about personalization a lot, I'm a big believer in what I always refer to as personalization, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking about who the guest is and critically where they are at a particular point in the process, right? There's a theory, I think it's Clay Christensen, I might be attributing this incorrectly, but there's a theory of when somebody uses a product or a service, they have hired that product or service to do a job, right? So it's the job you're hired to do. And if we think about where a guest is at any given point in their process, we need to be thinking about what is the job they're hiring this touch point to do. So if they're on the phone or they're on the website or they're, on an OTA, what job have they hired it to do? And are we actually fulfilling that job? Is our digital presence actually doing its job appropriately to make that journey work? So I don't get too hung up on, this framework or a different framework. I'm not a big believer that, you have to choose the one perfect framework that's absolutely the best. I think you have to look at it and say, do we have a framework that fits where our guests are in the process and actually aligns with answering their questions when they're hiring this specific touch point to do a specific job? And if you do that well, then the specific framework is less important than actually answering those questions.
Right. And the Campbell, I think it was just completely forced, right? It's like, well, why didn't they use Harry Potter or any, just pick any sort of, literature reference to go through for some sort of model or detective scheme? I mean, Hercule Poirot and how that applies. Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes approach to travel.
Right.
I mean, you can churn. A lot of this is just churning. It's just churning content.
Right.
But most travelers aren't heroes on epic journeys. Is probably the issue. They're just trying to get the Moline to kind of make the sales pitch and get home and see the kids type thing. Right. Yeah. So,
and I will tell you, I use a very brain dead persona model that I use a lot. That is very similar to like the DISC method or like the Myers-Briggs templates and the like. Where you think about people, are they motivated more by their head or more by their heart?
Right.
Are they motivated? Are they a fast decision maker or are they a slow decision maker? And you get 4 boxes and all this kind of stuff. Yep. And I tell people all the time, you can name those boxes if you want to. You could name them Miranda and Samantha and Charlotte and Carrie, if that helps you remember how they line up, for those of you who are fans of Sex and the City. But I also tell people, if that doesn't work for you, you can name them Leia and Han and Luke and C-3PO.
Or Java. No, maybe not Java.
But I mean, the reality is, or you could name them, Barrymore and, I mean, take any story that's got 4 characters that fit into those 4 boxes, and that works just as well.
3 Musketeers work well.
I like the 3 amigos because we are the 3 amigos.
Right. But the point being, it works. It works in the absence of something better. I don't claim that it's the best thing in the world, but if it's all you got, it's better than nothing. At the same time, what becomes more important than understanding those personas is understanding where are they in the process. What are the questions that they have? How do you answer those questions? Again, what's the job to be done at that point in the process, and are you actually helping them do it? So I don't get to the hero's journey or whatever. Are you answering the question?
And here's ironic. Okay, how often have you used sex?
Just interrupted Robert, so that's take.
Oh, did I? I wasn't looking at Robert. You. I'm so, Robert. Please go right ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I use and I completely agree with Tim. Even for groups that aren't as oriented toward personas, just even getting into it, I'll break it down very simply, where it'll be like, these folks are brand loyalists versus these people are brand agnostic, or these people are adventurers, where they want to go to a different destination. If you're looking at leisure travelers, different destination every time, right? They check it off the list. They go, great, we've been there. Boom, on to the next one, never return. Versus kind of the nesters who, actually a lot of times go into the kind of the timeshare thing, where yes, they go back in the 3rd week of March every year with the same. They see the same people from Cincinnati and whatever, and that's their thing. Right. Those are really, really different kinds of folks, or the experience levels of people. The people who go back to Vegas continuously, right? They're in there, once a quarter for 3 days, doing whatever. Doesn't just playing, right? And that's fine. A very different traveler than someone who's there on a convention, someone who's there for for a leisure weekend or something like that. So all those different personas, and I look at it for all these, for hotels or destinations. Those are really different people, and you have to really look at I strike it back to what is the purpose of the hotel?
Right.
Or so why do you exist?
Right.
You know, in this particular point.
Right.
Yeah, let's
Right.
start there, and then we can start kind of cobbling this together.
Right.
And it keeps them off of a lot of real problem areas where they're aspirationally wanting to, hey, we want to be a whatever. Wouldn't that be cool? And it's like, yeah, that would be cool, but maybe cover the basics first before you get tricky.
And Lauren, you've been very patient. I just want to add one quick thing to what Robert said, and then I will hand off to you. The one thing I do want to say is the one place where I do think personas have their value relative to what you just described, Robert, because I think that's a great place to start in terms of a segmentation and a framework. The one thing where personas play a key role that I think is worth thinking about is that, we have to remember when we talk about these personas, nobody is any one of these all the time. It's where are they in that phase? So, they might be very, logic driven and, have to know all the details and all the amenities and all the price and all that other kind of stuff. But then once they narrow it down to 2 properties, then it becomes, where am I going to have the most fun? And then suddenly they become very fast decision maker and very emotional. But apart from that, I think the one mistake that people often make with personas or any of these tools, DISC or Myers-Briggs or any of this kind of stuff, is assuming that anybody is only one of those all the time. And realistically, we kind of travel through them depending on where we are in the process.
And just to interrupt Lauren even further.
I now know why I interrupt Robert. He talks as much as I do. That's why I have to interrupt him.
That's right. But the other thing, and it's a good point, Tim's bringing up that you're changing personas even within the particular itinerary, which I think, quite honestly, is maybe too complicated for most hotels to deal with.
Sure.
I agree with. But my big point is that people have multiple personas.
Right.
So if I'm traveling with my wife for a weekend, really different than a family vacation, really different than a business trip. And, those are, again, getting down to the basic, why are people there? Oh, you're in a suburban office park. Okay, that's what you're doing. Oh, you've got a lot of meeting space. That's great. You're doing this. Or you're located near a stadium where there are NFL games or, baseball games or whatever it may be. That's fine. Those are really different people who may be wanting to use your hotel for various purposes, and that's at least what I find helps the hoteliers kind of cope with getting kind of from that transition of the market segment of we're looking for, bless you, a demographic of here who's in a particular geographic location with a particular income strata to try to get it into something that's a little bit more tangible to really work with. So. And Lauren, what were your ideas? Lauren, okay, so the next topic would be what?
First is, how often do you use Sex and the City as a reference point, Tim? Recently, when was the last time you used it as a reference point?
So that's a funny question. It's funny that you ask. It depends on the audience I'm talking to. I use those examples. I actually teach a class for Rutgers Business School's exec ed program in what are called personalized digital experiences. You can find it online at rutgers.edu. Hey, come on, we got to plug everything, right?
It's a cul-de-sac site off of timpeter.com.
We do. Rutgers Business School has a great what they call digital marketing mini MBA, and I teach 2 of the courses there, up to 4, but it depends on who's available for a given week. But one of the 2 I teach regularly is called personalized digital experiences, and when I take people through that idea, I actually use that reference all the time if there are certain people of a certain. I'm going to be honest, women of a certain, of ages between 35 and 55 get that reference. The Star Wars one gets a lot of people. I use the girls crew for, if it's a particularly young group. So it really just depends. But I will tell you, it's great. When I use it, if the right people are in the room, half the room laughs and half the room has no idea what I'm talking about. Same thing.
I just found it ironic because I've never used it for years, and today I've used it twice. And then now you bring it up on the show, and I'm like, how weird of a fate is that? That that we happen to be at the same analogy level at this point. Where like, oh yeah, it's just like Sex in the City, this and this and this.
And I have never used it because I have a daughter who I named Miranda before the show.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to sound smart on one thing, and this is just because I did this presentation in Vancouver a few days ago, and I twisted the storyline concept to what the hoteliers should be thinking of themselves, and then translate that into the from what you both have said, the context of why somebody might be engaging with them.
Right.
And create basically, I gave them 8 examples of storylines: soft adventure, family getaways, off the beaten path, cultural, historical, blah blah blah. There's a few of them, and you build your social storylines according to the context of what your hotel's story features well for, as to what the reasons would be for the content. But then I put a practical twist to it, and I said, with all the GTM tagging, Google Tag Manager tagging that you can do, in addition to the dates that people are using to determine their interest level, so you know what dates they're looking for, so it could be event-driven, business cycle-driven, whatever, conferences or whatever, you can also then backtrack their geosource and see what they're looking for, and use them in the storylines with your attribution strings to determine what social pieces they're engaging with on your storylines to better refine your organic content on your site to improve conversions during optimal booking windows.
Absolutely.
And,
or search queries if you have what they searched for.
Yeah.
For sure.
To me, that's a valuable storytelling process at that point, because you're defining the story of the context of the property and its role in how it affects these different ideas. And rather than I'm the hero and I'm going off on an adventure and I got to find a secret potion and all this other stuff,
right.
Lost in the messaging. But anyway,
well, you know what that is. You know what that is, Lauren, is it's consultant 101, right? And I'm a consultant, you're a consultant, Robert's a consultant. You know, I peel back the curtain on this all the time to people because it's worthwhile for people to understand. You know, the joke about being a consultant is you have to have 3 things. You have to have circles, you have to have squares, and you have to have triangles. Right? And
I was going to say good looks, but damn it.
No. Oh, dear God, no. And what you do is you label those a certain way. And now it's not a circle or a square or a triangle. It's a framework, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. But realistically, so much of what we do is intangible. And when you make it a circle or a square or a triangle, suddenly it becomes tangible and people can put their ideas around it. The challenge, the place where that gets negative is if that's as deep as you ever take it, that look, here's my circle and it's got like lines in it and I've labeled them and look, it's the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, that's what I call a baffling smoke screen or BS. Yes, exactly. If it leads to something deeper, like you just described, well, then it's not BS. Then it's actually a framework that you can put in place, but you have to keep it. You have to start with it being a little bit not nebulous, but loosely defined, because you need to change the parameters of what goes inside it for different clients, for different cases, etc. And there are certainly baffling smokescreen frameworks out there that's as deep as they go. Of look, it's the hero's journey.
It's for you to figure out.
I'll charge you a lot of money, and now you can do things with it. And instead of saying, okay, this is how we start to approach it and how we start to think about it, but then we're going to dive down deeply into each of these areas and answer the question of, okay, if they're at this stage, if they're at I'm completely making this up because I don't know the hero's journey off the top of my head, but if it's the dark night of the soul, what does that mean? Right? Like what do you do with that? How do you apply it practically? Which I think you did a really nice job of, Lauren. So that's how you take it to the next step.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I said I wanted to throw that out there to bash it a little bit because I'm getting tired of it being used as the kind of the on the pedestal mirror when it's not usable. Like you said, it's a BS mirror. It's like, what do you do with it? At the end of it, they walk out the door going, wow, that was great. That was fun. And I remember exactly when this happened 2 years ago at the digital marketing conference. I forget who it was. He was a great speaker and it really was an engaging conversation, but he did a quick little video of his journey to New York. And pictures and video, which at the time was, new to be introduced into presentations, and people just bought it hook, line, and sinker. This is what we have to do. This is what we have to do. It's the hero's journey. It's the guy that discovers, and it's the wizard that helps him. And it's like, bring that back and make money off of that, because that's just a lot of, it's a nice idea. It was a great presentation, but at the end of the day, what money did it put on the table for you? How did you translate that is the real key.
Well, and to turn this into something, that the hotels who are watching, the hotel marketers are watching can really use, I would say be firm on your agencies and on your consultants and people along those lines, because there can be a degree of, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, hang them up with horse shit in this business. Right? Just getting people to look over here, shiny and new. Yeah. But what is the next step? Where does it go? Right. And that's important to for them to show. It's great that they have a framework. It's great, we do need frameworks, because we do need to show clients without a lot of detail, because we can only get into detail after we've had some discussions and begin to understand things about their business, that we have a process and we have a repeatable structure that we can use in a lot of different contexts. But precisely your point, okay, take it to the next level. Explain to me what that means in practice. How's that actually going to work? What's that really going to look like?
And to anchor it in their business objectives and kind of core strategies. So it's like, wait a second, you wouldn't do this. How does it go? How do we connect the dots back to here? And if you've got too many dots, that's not good.
Right. I mean, what I do, I'm sure it's what Robert does. Lauren, I'm sure it's what you do, is we collect frameworks, because framework A is going to work in some contexts, and framework B is going to work in other contexts, and framework C is going to work in other contexts based on specific objectives, based on specific limitations within the business and the like. So it is a matter of, but you don't want to have to start from scratch every single time either, because that's not efficient for you or for the client, right?
I don't know, Tim. I've been very successful with actually using randomization and chaos.
There is a value to chaos. You got to give credit on that. There is a value to chaos. Yeah, that's very
usually chaos is why I get asked to come in.
Exactly,
Robert. So
no, you're talking about frameworks. The framework I run into often is, can we see? Okay, where's your business plan and the things like that. And I use it's a bucket. Because you got to kind of what the hell is this? You kind of, let's take the stuff out of the bucket and look at it.
Right. Well, kind of like the way I treat my accountant, where I show up on April 14th in a shoebox and go, help.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what is this stuff? Yeah. First, we're going to identify what this stuff is.
Right, exactly.
Then we'll talk about it.
Exactly. Well, it's funny. I got to tell one story. I'm going to digress terribly for a moment, but let's be fair. That could be the title of the show.
Let's digress. Let's digress.
We're going to name it now. But I digress.
But I digress.
BID, the BID podcast. There you go.
The BID, but I digress.
So
actually, there's merit to that title.
That is not bad, actually. When I first worked with an outside consultant, this is years ago, or early in my career. This is before I was in the hospitality industry, mid-90s. We had a consultant come in to help us with an ERP solution. So we were applying this big, piece of technology to help us be more efficient. This was a good-sized company. People would know who it was. And the consultant was asking my boss and I, kept asking, so what is your process for X? And what is your process for Y? And what is your process for Z? And every time the consultant asked the question, my boss and I looked at one another and went, oh, that's a good idea. We should have one of those. We should get one of those.
We should have a budgeting process. We should have a planning
we were like,
process.
wait, people, that's a really good idea, But I mean, it was early in our careers. We were young, we didn't know a lot. And it was just kind of the funniest thing, because I think there wasn't a single question of what's your process for initiating a new marketing campaign? We usually see somebody in the hall and they go, hey,
I have this
busy.
And we're taking notes furiously. Tell us about what people do. That's a good idea.
Oh, man.
So anyway.
Well, I've got since we started off, is this the slamming show? Since we slammed the Sniffer article, can we move on to slam something else now?
Yes, it's your turn, Robert, for a topic. I was going to go over and say we all bring a little thing to the table.
My obligatory I mean, Lauren recommended Four Seasons, so we might as well talk about them. So,
wait,
do you have the link?
Bingo!
Yeah, there you go. With their studio that they've launched, with their collaborative
Here,
workspace.
I'll put the link up for it. I'll put the link up while we're doing this.
Very, very sad. Very disappointing. It's just a complete PR. It's puppet theater. I mean, it's
you mean a little bit like
between
Hyatt's
mine and-
membership rewards program in transition, like that?
No. The Hyatt membership rewards one I think is good. I've got a lot of respect. I used to work with Jeff Seidel at Sabre, so Jeff is a
nice
really smart. No. Jeff's a really smart guy, and Hyatt has done very good things with Gold Passport, and I think getting it into their renaming it from Gold Passport is a very good thing.
Yeah,
so,
I do agree.
But no, the Four Seasons membership studio. Have you posted the link, or not the membership studio? The what do they call it? It's the
Discovery Studio.
Research and Discovery Studio.
Yes.
I'm sorry. When they're spending a lot of I know it's a co-working. They're trying to be hip. They're trying to be modern.
Marriott has one, so they have to have one.
For the key to Four Seasons is being good at it. Okay.
Right.
So they're saying, yes, we're going to go get things and lay out tabletops, and we're going to have it in this space and things like that. Look, and I've been through this process, opening hotels for them, doing marketing planning for, they commented on, doing the things like that, the shampoos and everything. Yes, I was there when they were the first ones to put it in the hotel rooms, but we did it in offices. We figured out things. You don't need it to have the space where they're going to build things with cardboard before they go do this. Total waste of space. Total waste of time. Get people working on the strategies. Get them coming up with things. If you're going to develop a great guest room, great. Use computer-aided design. Don't use a whole bunch of stupid three-dimensional things when you're going through ideas. Then when it's really done and you've got some experts who really know about fabrics, who know about design and workflow and use of the room, then you can go build a model, and that's fine.
So I'm going to be the devil's advocate on this one, Robert.
Okay.
And with the full disclosure of this is not my expertise in terms of, I've done digital experiences for years. Real world experiences, I certainly have a lot of experience with as a consumer, but typically I didn't run, the property openings component. So explain to me why this is bad. Like, why is it a bad thing to if you think about like a lean startup of get a minimum viable product, get it up, give it a shot, see what it feels like in the real world, and maybe find out, oh, you know what? Every time I get out of bed, I'm banging my knee on the end table or something like that.
And that's okay. The big thing though is what Alan Smith said. Every Four Seasons is different, right? If you're doing a standardized product, that's great, but they need to be doing that in each of their locations. So the typical standard for Four Seasons is to have pre-opening offices where you build out full-blown hotel rooms. We started that again in the early 80s, which was and you could swap things. You could swap things out. You knew the square footage of that actual room and how it was going to work. I just don't see for other organizations. I mean, if it was, a Econo Lodge, someone who's doing it doesn't really matter. Could be choice for a new Comfort Inn thing. Yeah, that's great. Where you're going to go take these things and go plug. Here we go. But if you're starting to do things, especially with Four Seasons, the key to Four Seasons and the difference from Four Seasons versus Ritz-Carlton was always Four Seasons is a mosaic. Right, each piece is different, and the whole becomes something beautiful. Where Ritz-Carlton was more like a melting pot, right? It was always here's the same thing, and here's kind of replicated. Now Ritz is kind of changed a little; they become more Four Season-ish. But yeah, the whole studio of having something. Four Seasons is tasked with so many openings. I think they have something like 40 some openings in the next couple of years, which is going to tax that organization no end. Having this one space where they need to be working out what the guest room is like.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
30 different hotels ain't going to happen. And it's just going to be, here's the showcase that we've got to set up because people come into the offices and look at it, and here's our research and design studio, and isn't this cool? And it's like, okay, fine. But I look at it as a piece of theater more than, it's for PR more than anything else, and it'll be a nice thing where they can take people on the tour. My favorite one of that. Actually, to digress for one moment, when I was with,
I digress.
But I digress. When I was with Anasazi, and Anasazi ran what is the Pegasus switch now, or the Disco switch.
It was Disco in those days,
It was Disco.
The hotel industry switch company.
The big thing out on Dreamy Draw Drive in Phoenix, Arizona.
No, it will.
Well, was to take people through the computer room, because you walked in and on the right side had all the comm racks, and it had lots of wires and really cool flashing lights. It was great. Yeah. And then you'd walk down around the corner and there are all these cables going into all this other stuff until somebody tripped over a cord one time. And boom, all those lights went out. Yeah. Oops.
Meanwhile, the guy in airplane holding the power cord. Kitten.
Yep. That was it. But that was the showcase. Like, look at this is what we you couldn't see anything, and it was and actually, quite honestly, from a security perspective, was probably very, very bad, because it was just kind of like some thin panes of glass that you could get to. If somebody wanted to take it out, it would.
Well, that was a long time ago. We didn't know about that.
It was a long time.
Didn't think about those things then. Yeah.
Well, but I don't know. A couple of us, when we first went in there, that was our first comment, going, wow, the security, this is really bad.
I'm going to play mediator on this. I lean towards what Robert's saying. That's a little bit more of a showcase event. But to Tim's perspective, I think that if they think about it in their core sense, as you say, your mosaic pattern as to what really is the quality value of Four Seasons, that they'll be quick to adapt that this isn't just a showcase piece, but it could be a truly functional value proposition if they approach it the way they should approach all Four Seasons projects, based on what you have as a brand culture mentality. Because you're kind of like a keeper of the keys, Robert. You remember what brought Four Seasons to its success level, because you lived that experience. And even though you're not directly engaged with them anymore, you still keep that memory as to what made it a value. And
we
transitioned
that company. Yeah, we transitioned that company from a small regional Canadian hotel company. I mean, the people forget the portfolio, and 1980, 1981 was Belleville, Ontario, Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa.
Right.
That's where there was one property that just opened in '79 in Washington, D.C. They had the Clift in San Francisco.
Right.
They had the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago. I mean, they had one name property there. They had the Inn on the Park in London, the Inn on the Park in Toronto, which was a 650 room suburban resort. I mean, right before that, they had what was now the Sheraton Center in Toronto, overlooking City Hall, 1,450 room convention property. It was a mess, sort of thing.
Well,
and again,
what it was is more like what somebody like Leading or Preferred is today, right? In a lot of ways, it was more of a soft brand. It was it was where you had standards that tied them together. But each property
and that still is. And that still is, and that was the key. The standards are what does it. So each property is different. Each property needs to be tied into its location, and they learned that very painfully with a horribly bad opening. I think I mentioned this before on the show in Boston, because they had the wrong general manager, the wrong director of marketing, and all they tried to do was replicate what they did before.
Right.
And it opened stub year occupancy 25%. That's not a good, and they came in cocky. They came in, they wanted to be more expensive than the Ritz-Carlton, and it was better. And that was an old, tired dowager hotel. And you're like, whoa, this is like running a marathon. That hotel, nobody had an issue with. Yes, it needed work.
Right.
But people had been there for 60 years before, with weddings and anniversaries, and it was a key, important, component of the city. I mean, it was an icon in Boston.
If I can tie this together with our first discussion just for a second, we used to have this discussion at Leading all the time. that, this isn't picking on Ritz-Carlton. This is just stating what was true of Ritz-Carlton at the time, was you got a very consistent template. You got a very consistent product. You had a very consistent experience, a spectacular but consistent experience.
Which was established by Four Seasons at the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago, including the blue water glasses.
Well, but the point, you're absolutely right. But the point was, there was a traveler who, if they were going to Thailand or they were going to Singapore or they were going to Paris and someplace they'd never been before, but wanted to feel very comfortable with their surroundings while they were out in the city, that is an absolutely appropriate experience to say, I want to go there, but particularly if you go back 10, 15 years, this was much more common. I don't want to get too in depth in the culture. I have other things I'm there to do. Right. So I need to know I can walk in and the room's going to be the way I like and everything's going to be set up the way I like and it's going to be the same as when I'm in Chicago or when I'm in Miami.
And certainly the Marriott, Hilton, Sheraton strategy, and why in Paris the highest rated hotel. I mean, back in that time frame, highest rated hotels in Paris, aside from maybe the Ritz and the George Cinq, that sort of thing, were, at least from a 4-star perspective, were the Marriott and the Hilton, and things like that, because it was all the Americans coming in going, I want an American experience.
And when leading was at its best, and I think it is at its best today. I think Ted and his team are doing a hell of a job. But there were a couple of years where they kind of got lost in the woods for a little bit, primarily because what they tried to do was be so standardized. They lost that what it was for the guest at the other end of the spectrum who wasn't looking for consistency. They were looking for consistency of service, but they were looking to experience the culture of the place that they were, right? So you kind of have a continuum where on one end you have, let's take Marriott or Hilton or somebody like that, where it's exactly the same experience everywhere you go. And at the other end, you have someplace like a leading or a preferred or what Four Seasons has been at points throughout its life, where you have a consistency of standard, you have a consistency of service, you have a consistency of how you feel, but the actual experience, the product itself, is very distinct to the place where you are and is very acculturated. It's part of the culture of where you are.
Well, and going back to the hero's journey, that's not how it works in travel. When you get and look at what's happening in China now. Yeah, it always used to be, the Chinese, they're on the tour buses and things like that, which was the same as the Japanese coming to the U.S., which is the same as the Americans going to Europe, right? Of course, they were all massed together on this tour bus, coming out with their cameras, having an exactly standardized experience, and that's when these things are very new and unsophisticated travelers in a new destination, and that change now accelerates really, really rapidly. Right now, particularly for the Chinese, they are venturing off on their own, at a pace where they're jumping off the tour bus really fast. Right?
Well, one of the reasons for that, again, to make this fairly digital focused, we talk about this all the time. The first time that ever occurred is largely attributed to MTV, and increasingly is attributed to the internet, in that this is critical. This is actually a really important thing for people to think about in terms of, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, the experience that you had locally, you didn't expect to get New York level amenities if you were in Iowa. You didn't expect to get, Paris level amenities if you were in Miami, right? Because everything was local. That's the way the world works.
And the city, going back to Four Seasons, the city didn't support it. Well, I mean, the Four Seasons in San Antonio and the Four Seasons in Ottawa and these places, you couldn't really establish that level of service because the costs related to it, you couldn't generate the bottom line for the owners.
Well, that's true.
To make it work.
That's absolutely true.
Now is different, though. Well, now you can start doing that a little bit.
But here's I agree with you, Robert. I'm trying to make a slightly different point in addition to that. What also has changed is what the guest expects. Because if you were from Iowa or you were from Miami or you were from Houston or you were from wherever, you didn't know any different. Not because you were unsophisticated, But just like the Chinese traveler, if you're starting out coming out of, Shenzhen or something like that, and all you know is Shenzhen, you kind of expect that's what the world works a lot of places, and so you're less familiar. But literally, kids getting exposed to MTV in the 80s, and then the internet exposing everybody to everything all over the world, it's raised the expectations of, well, why can't everything be like that, right? If I see this really great thing over here, why can't I have that where I am or the next place I'm going? It's one of the challenges that, hospitality is facing is there are a lot of guests who will not stay in an Airbnb or have never stayed in an Airbnb or may never take an Uber. However, they've come to understand there's an experience there that's really great because they hear about it from lots of people. There's ratings and reviews. There's all kinds of media coverage of it online as well as on, traditional media and the like. And they go, well, great. Then how come when I go to your hotel, I don't get that same type of experience?
Right.
So guest expectations, because of what they're exposed to before they ever travel, are significantly higher than they ever were. And it's probably why as you say, the Chinese tourists are jumping off the tour bus so fast, because they don't have to take a whole lot of trips before they're exposed to a whole bunch of stuff and go, well, wait a second, why isn't everything just better?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'll add one thing to that. It was explained to me. I thought it was a very neat story way actually, and it's called the flashlight theory. And that is early explorers, when you're first exploring undiscovered territory, you have a flashlight and you can only see what's in the light of the flashlight as you're discovering things. It's a very narrow cast and you can only follow the path that the flashlight can provide to you.
Until you better have a group of people around you because it might be really dangerous. What you
right. Once you get outside the light,
right. And until progress follows behind you, and all of a sudden they start putting up lights, and you realize that there's a lot more to see than just what the flashlight showed you.
Right.
And to that end, to your point, Tim, that's what the internet's done for us. We stayed on tour buses because off of the one path. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that in New Orleans, if you went off Bourbon Street, that's actually true. You were no longer the place that you thought you were, Alice. It was a different world. It wasn't what you thought as a tourist place.
Right.
And so same too with any cross-cultural travel is that you stay to the narrow cast where somebody might still speak your language if you're on that path, might still take your currency, might still help you as a tourist. But if you go one street off, you're not in that world anymore.
Right.
But now with the understanding with the internet and the usability and the language usages and so forth that are improving, now that light is brighter and you can see wider and farther, and you're not wanting to stay on that one designated curated path. You're wanting to explore for your own interest what you're personally interested in rather than what's curated to you.
And especially when you're carrying the internet in your pocket.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have all the information you could possibly need with you at all times.
Tools and things. This little jobber. If you ever travel internationally, grab one of these little jabbies.
Skyroam?
It is called Skyroam. And it is its own 180 countries international SIM card. Unlimited data, $10 a day.
Wow.
So you don't have to mess with buying SIM cards when you go to country. You don't have to worry about, and plus also you can VPN connect through it, but it's pretty secure on its own right because it does encryption anyway. But it lasts 8 hours on its own battery. And like I said, unlimited data. So you're not like buying 30 gigs and hope it lasts your trip. So
this episode of
Why Now?
This episode of
brought to you by Skyroam.
Brought to you by Skyroam. And tell them about
Google's Project 5.
Anyway.
Lauren, how much are you getting paid for that one, buddy?
I don't know, but I should be.
He's sending him an invoice.
Exactly.
I'm sending him an invoice.
Exactly. Stamp them out.
Actually,
you can rent it by the month too. If you don't want to buy one for $99, you can rent it for a month and then send it back to him too, which is pretty cool.
Right.
Tim, did you have a topic? Because I'm sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to make a point just on this whole exploration. The cruise market I find is very interesting because we take a lot of cruises. We're going to take a cruise over the holidays, because you go to these different destinations, and it is in some ways kind of like that tour bus, right? And you have these excursions go off, and it's a large mass of people, and also the all-inclusive resort market. People go down there and boom, they're plopped into the place. They don't leave the confines of the compound, right? And they aren't really getting the culture. They see the little show that comes in or something like that, and it's a really kind of artificial experience. Now the better ones are doing really interesting things with integrating with the communities and the destinations, things like that. But on the cruise ships, I mean, there are a lot of people who don't get off the ships. and they just stay
sure.
on, and you're like, wait a second, you're in St.
Speaking of Apocalypse Now, that phrase out of Apocalypse Now, the movie, don't get off the boat. Never get off the boat.
Yeah, but they don't, and you're sitting there going, "Oh my god, yeah, no, you need to get out." There's like really cool stuff to see, but they're just so far out of their element.
I was talking to an
it's
elderly
crazy.
gentleman, an acquaintance of my dad's. My father's in his mid-80s, and I was talking to somebody he knows, and the gentleman went on a cruise, first time in his life, and it was only the second time he'd ever been out of the country.
There you go.
And he never got off the boat. Now, to be fair to him, he also has some problems walking around for distances and the like.
Right.
But he said, no, the boat was neat. There was a lot to do. It had everything. And it was funny. I have to tell this story because this blew my mind. He'd been out of the country once before. He'd been out of the country in the late 40s, early 50s in the Army. Right.
That's what I was going to say.
Well,
World War II.
wait for this. No, it was after World War II, but only just. And he was talking about the fact that he had to get his passport to go on this cruise because he had to go to Mexico. And I was like, well, and he didn't know anything about getting a passport. And I said, well, you had a passport when you went overseas the first time. And he said, no, we were the Army of the occupation. He didn't need a passport to get in the country. We just told them we were coming, and they really couldn't stop us.
I think certain countries look at American tourists with a similar sort of.
Unfortunately, we act like that sometimes too.
I was completely unprepared for that because he talked about having gone, going to Germany or being in Germany and going across to Italy and things along those lines. And he was like, no, at the time we were running Europe, so This was like 1947. Like
passports. We don't need no stinking passports.
I didn't know that. It was a good education for me. It had never occurred to me at that point that no.
So, Mr. Tim, what do you have? Do you have anything you want to say? You can take anything I throw on the list too, but
I actually want to bring up the one Robert brought up while we were in the pre-show about the Expedia earnings call. I think that's I think there's some really interesting stuff to talk about there. So I will
tie with the Airbnb's and the $30 billion evaluation on that one too, because they're kind of tied together.
I don't get too hung up on valuations. I think valuations are neat and they're sexy and all that other kind of stuff. But don't get me wrong, I like money as much as the next guy. But I think it's more interesting what is the meaning behind it, And I think that some of the stuff that came up on the Expedia call. Robert brought up some great points about it. I think are well worth talking to and really relevant to hoteliers about, Expedia had terrific year-over-year business. A lot of it was based on actual access to inventory. They got a lot more inventory in system than they had a year ago. And a lot of that is based on hotels who are starting to get worried about filling their rooms. Yeah. And shockingly, worried about filling their rooms. And what are the hotels doing? They're immediately going back to Expedia and going, hey, remember all that stuff about Book Direct? Kidding. We just want the business.
Right.
And I just...
The hotel industry is looking forward, and they're panicking. They're going, the growth is stopped, and this is bad. And, this is really, difficult time. No, it's not difficult times. This is peak occupancy. Yeah. The average Rev Bar has continued to increase. When I look at the 12-month moving average, it is at an all-time high, and everything's
honestly, they just don't get the people that are running the hotels right now don't want to get stuck with the empty chair when the music stops. They don't want to get stuck with the bag of poop.
Yeah. Well, and
that's what they got to be beating their mark every time now.
The key is Wall Street requiring year-over-year earnings growth, and you have higher comps because of last year, and it's getting tougher. And you can start seeing now, once things start getting to over 70% occupancy nationally, you start hitting a ceiling.
Oh, sure.
Because, it's like, hey, this, again, this large hotel in the suburban office park with the meeting space just doesn't have the demand during the school year on weekends for whatever to really fill it up. And all of a sudden you start going, 2 out of 7 days or 3 out of 7 days, doing so well because we don't have the corporate traveler, or the group traveler, or the leisure. It doesn't really matter, right?
So
there are gaps.
So here's my advice. So I just wrote I write a column for Hotel News now that will come out in the Tech Impact Report on November 9th. That talks about this same thing. And I'm not the only person singing this song right at the immediate moment, but about, we need to focus on profit, not revenue. We need to focus on what are the profitable channels, where are the channels where you're actually getting the best business, and now is the time when you've got data and you have business to actually understand where are the profitable places that business is coming from, to invest in the tools and the tactics and the things that will allow you to actually continue to leverage those as things start to get a little uglier, probably 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out. So that you're using this as an opportunity to learn and to keep some powder dry for when you're going to need it, right?
Yep.
The moment you're short a room, you immediately turn to the OTAs. We just keep perpetuating this vicious cycle. And I think you guys know this. I'm not a guy who beats up the OTAs.
Right.
The OTAs have tremendous value when you need them. They can be a good way to fill rooms that you don't have a better way to fill. They are a terrible way to fill rooms that you can fill much more profitable ways. So why?
And working with an OTA is much easier than having a sales department and a director of marketing and all that.
I think
you can just completely outsource all the stuff and just go, hey, fill me, give them, and just go, right? And you can cut all those overhead, and that's a really rotten strategy, but
I think people are going to look back on this time, though. I think that they're going to look back on this time and realize that they should have negotiated while the market was as it is now with their OTAs strategically for 17 in a more effective way than just defaulting to what their standard relationships are. I mean, I think of going to that direct booking summit in DC and Charlie with Trip Tees out there, which was also in that live summit yesterday that Ed was a part of. And he made a great comment. He says, I'm all for OTAs as long as their dollars are incremental.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. And going back to the legal discussions and things, this is the time to discuss the can and cannot functionalities of your OTA relationship.
That's right.
This is what you're allowed to do. This is what you're not allowed to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm willing to pay for. And we don't do those in an effective way. So next year when we start, again, unfortunately saying the word whoring ourselves back out to the OTAs because it's the quick fix. We're going to be at the mercy of an unnegotiated contract or a not well strategically designed contract,
right? Sure.
In which we're going to go over and be bending over and bitching about the OTAs again because we're taking this huge chunk of percentage out of our top line revenue for them.
Well, the column I wrote just real quick is actually called "Is It Time to Give Up?" And I'm not going to read the column, but it's funny that you said this, Robert. I've got the line, should we just outsource all our marketing activities to OTAs? After all, they're fantastic at marketing and merchandising. Right?
Yeah, they're better at it than your hotel, their major hotel brand.
And I then say, no. In fact, hell no.
Right.
So, I mean, it's all about finding profitable revenue and not about the point isn't to compete head to head. I heard somebody the other day refer to the OTAs as distribution superpowers. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it, right? If you are an individual hotel or an independent hotel, trying to go head to head with Expedia on, the quality of the booking process precisely is probably stupid, right? What you do need to focus on is value and profitability. Are you providing a good value to your guest? Are you making yourself a good option for them to choose so that you don't just get commoditized and just become another room in that play, right?
Right. Yeah. But the interesting thing, and going back to Expedia's earnings call, and when Bar was talking about the relationship with Marriott and providing the packaging platform and everything like that, certainly alluded to bigger, more interesting things coming. And I think, quite honestly, they also commented about some things that they acquired from Orbitz that they didn't have before, which he didn't come out and say it, but it was Neat Group.
Yeah, sure.
So that platform provides them with some very interesting flexibility, which unfortunately Neat Group was built to counteract what the OTAs are using. Now they're going to be using that tool, to basically reinforce what they do. But it's going to be, basically, Expedia spends a ton on technology. They spend a ton on usability. They spend a ton on testing, a ton on marketing.
I was going to say they actually spend twice. They spend twice what they spend on technology and usability on marketing.
Right. Yes.
So, but I'm going to add 2 points to this.
But they do that for a reason.
Oh yeah,
because
of course they do.
Because they did that technology and the testing, and now they know when they spend the marketing, it makes it through the funnel, right?
Actually, let me say they're not always right. They're not always right about it either.
No, they aren't. They test a lot of stuff, and they're wrong. I mean, the dimming thing, the literal. Now, in terms of the sort order, that's a totally different thing, and that sort order is the primary weapon of them, and it's called dimming now, and you got moved down the sort order. The actual technical dimming of removing content and changing pictures and providing a crappy experience was a stupid thing for them to experiment with, right? Because that was like this punitive thing. And I think they learned really quickly, like, wait a second, why punish, and I'm just making this up, the Waldorf Astoria? That's a long length of stay, high ADR thing. With our commission, we make a lot more money by selling it than trying not to sell it to someone who wants to buy it.
I also do want to point out really quick, when I say they spend twice what they spend on technology and usability on marketing, let's be very fair what these numbers are. They spent $1.5 billion or thereabouts on marketing. So they only spent $750 million on the other things. Yeah, just pocket change, right?
Small numbers.
And not easy stuff to do. And again, looking at the packaging area, they completely, years ago, they pulled packaging out of Ian, with their affiliate network. Right. And I looked at it and went, whoa, that's really crazy.
Well, and I'll tell you,
they were replatforming everything, and it was too complicated, and they didn't want to have a crappy experience, and they had already had multiple platforms and all this junk that wasn't working. And they did. They made the hard decision of just going, hey, affiliates, we're making money where you guys are selling air, hotel, car combinations, and this is a good little bit. You can't do it anymore because we're getting our house in order.
Well, I tell you what, Lauren,
that's a hard decision.
Lauren, there was something you wanted to say, and I want to give you an opportunity to say it. I do want to come back to the packaging in just a moment, why that might not actually be bad for Marriott if, in fact, Expedia does that for them.
Oh, it's not.
But Lauren, go ahead. You were going to say.
I'm going to put a link into a webinar I just did. When I do presentations at different conferences, I also, because I have the tendency to talk a lot at the live presentation, I do a recording webinar so that the entire presentation is the way I intended it rather than the rabbit holes I chase down when I'm doing a live presentation. I know, right? Surprise. But what 2 things got addressed out of a presentation I just did that reason why I'm put the link to the webinar for the show notes this time is, one is storytelling is related to not commoditizing your product in the sense that it's not just the standardization of rooms and pools and amenities and room types and everything else, and that you're going to need to have that relevance into the new world of AI that we're getting into.
Sure.
And the second is, there is a mathematical way to translate, Tim, what you just said, where if you're seeing business being driven from particular channels, and you know the conversion value of those channels, and you know the lead time of those channels, all data that you can get from analytics now, then you can define your revenue strategies by isolating those feeder markets with resistant pricing that you know exist in that market for the time frame that they're interested in, under the context of content that they're related about traveling their experience for. And it's a tangible method of combining digital marketing and revenue management into a cohesive strategy that isn't just about having a marketing plan on a shelf over here and a weekly strategy that has accuracy factors on forecasting over here. It's putting the two together to say, we need to target these markets at these rates on these channels at these conversions, spending this much money for these rates for this occupancy to generate this revenue. It's a real
and understanding if there's a gap, where are those people going? Did you either overestimate the number of people in the market, or is there a competitor who's doing that?
Right.
That's
Are you
right.
losing market share to somebody else for your efforts being made? And that's when you start leveraging your OTA values, because then you can
That's
start
right.
pushing market towards you.
Yep.
Because you're identifying yourself as a market type of product rather than just a market inventory. There is a way to leverage OTA presence that makes you a strong candidate for persuading people into your market share.
I just posted 2 links. Just because this is something we do all the time for clients specifically. We do distribution cost analyses, and it's channel based, and it's exactly what you just said, and it's math. It's pure math of what you want to do is take this from being a, how do we feel about this marketing, to making it a math problem.
Yep.
I mean, fundamentally, right? Yeah, I have a long-standing belief. This is also in the column that I wrote, that I talked about a few minutes ago. But, this is a line I've been saying for years about the fact that, the moment you put a buy button on your marketing, on digital marketing, it's a distribution channel. And we need to
I've taken that statement and used it 3 times since you gave it. I thought it was an absolutely excellent statement.
Well,
absolutely
excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is, the difference between marketing and distribution online is whether or not there's a buy button, period. And if somebody can click through to the buy button, it's a distribution channel. I don't care. So we should be looking at this from a distribution cost analysis perspective. It is absolutely critical that we're looking at these pieces. And you're absolutely right, Lauren. I cannot agree more that the data exists to actually do this, so that you can say, this marketing is working for us, this distribution channel is working for us. And making it work. There was a great Hebs piece the other day where they did work with Navis about how much volume they were getting through voice from their various marketing and distribution channels that hadn't been attributed appropriately previously. And it's really worthwhile reading. And it basically nets out to, and I like this number far more than numbers that some folks used in the past that I think were pulled out of their hats, where basically this study with Navis showed that basically for every reservation they were doing online, they were getting essentially a reservation through voice. And I think that's probably about right. I used to hear people say, for every reservation you get on the web, you get 3 reservations on voice, or you get 5 reservations. And no, you don't. No, you don't. But, do you get 1 for every one? Yeah, probably. That's probably about right. And
I'm honoring your hat idea. It's coming out of your head.
I got that. There was a little bit of editing on the fly there. Keeping a family show. I do want to go back to the packaging for just a moment. I used to be a Neat Group customer, and obviously, Robert, you can talk about Neat better than I can. I can tell you, I used Neat Group in a couple different contexts in a couple different places, and what we found to be true, and where I think Marriott is probably smart to use packaging technology from somebody like Expedia, is it tends to be ancillary revenue. Most people who are looking for a package aren't thinking, Marriott, that's where I'm going to go, right? That's the kind of thing where they look to an OTA or they look to a traditional travel agent to say, okay, I need somebody to put together a more complicated trip.
Right.
As opposed to, I need flights and I need a rental car and I need a hotel. I'm going to start with the hotel company because they'll take care of that for me. That's probably not good business for Marriott to get into, or any hotel. That's a place where you want your inventory available through these channels, because realistically, that's going to be incremental, that's going to be ancillary, and it's probably not something you're going to get into the customer's mindset as being the place where they should buy that from the outset. When we used Neat and its competitors on hotel websites, it was an okay little piece of business, but it was certainly not life-changing. Right. When I worked for Leading Interactive Reservations and we ran a luxury online travel agency, the Neat packaging actually outsold everything else we did.
Right.
In fact, to the point where we actually, because we were kind of a luxury online travel agency, we actually shifted the focus to be more about contact us when you need a package, because that's what we can do better than anybody else. And we actually made pretty good money there. Our only this is off, topic completely, but I digress. Our issue was scaling it realistically.
Right.
That's the only place where we ran into problems, because we had so many people needing so many distinct packages, in a luxury space, that it just required people answering the phone, and that was obviously a scalability problem.
Yeah, well, and I think in a lot of cases, and Neat's strategy from the beginning wasn't fulfilled, because we wound up selling Descendant. Descendant changed the business model and basically killed the future development of the platform. But Neat originally was designed for a couple of reasons. One was by creating a bundle, you created price opacity, so you could offer discounted rates and that sort of thing where it didn't impact your retail pricing structure.
Right.
The other side of it, though, that was very interesting were all the rules based. So you could tack down very specific scenarios, and very honestly, most of the Neat clients didn't do this, but we had a very interesting discussion with Hertz. Hertz was like, oh, we want to put a fence around the corporate market. So their idea was, we will not rent any cars to any individual traveling alone. And we had amazing analytics. We went back and showed them, well, you could do that. And here are a bunch of bookings that, these are corporate people, prime time, they need a car at Newark and that sort of thing. But, here's the woman who wanted the Mustang convertible for a month in Hawaii.
Right.
You kind of want one. You don't want those guys. And so we did. So we came up with a very interesting approach to do that, where you didn't set up these massive fences. It's kind of the same thing. A leisure traveler for the airlines requires a Saturday night stay.
Right.
I mean, that's just, it's trying to eat with chopsticks with boxing gloves on. I mean, it's just not gonna be successful.
Tim, I'm glad you reminded me of this. 2 weeks ago when you were on the show, I know we talked and we had kind of back and forth about meta search and so forth.
Oh yeah,
And a few days after that, I woke up. The old analogy, what keeps you awake at night, and it's something collided with me. What was a thought that coalesced with me from our argument? Well, it was an argument. Just we saw it from a different perspective.
Yeah,
was when you look at some of the movings of what Expedia is doing. Just to refresh memory, we were talking about the actual amount of volume. Robert was great about mitigating the amount of volume that was on metasearch platform versus an OTA platform. What the volume comparisons were on those, and then I started piecing together a scary thought to this process. We have them engaged with Marriott, working with packaging. We have them engaged with Red Lion in membership rewards. They're testing things. They're working with things.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Now add that to
they're invested in Alice.
Yeah.
Right. And Alice. Okay. Which is in live engagement with people at property level, which is a whole other category of stuff we probably won't even get to today. But what gets me with this is that as AI is shifting, they see the writing on the wall. If anybody's going to get out of the party in the long-term sense of those who own the buildings, the commodity, and versus those who are selling them like a Google, OTAs have the most risk factor to this, because unless they have a tangible value proposition to anywhere in between those two people, they're going to lose market. So now all of a sudden you start begin to piece these things together, that here you have AI. And maybe Expedia introduces the idea, to your point, Robert, where, hey, it knows enough about you as a corporate traveler based on the same type of stuff that Google's using to interpret Gmail and everything else to say, hey, Robert, you're going to such and such place. Here's the whole kabang. You fly on these airlines because you have membership with them, and this is the best rates for them, and this is the fly times you like, and the seats that you like, and the hotel that you like, and the membership with it you like, and the things to do you like, and the car you need that you like, and for the time that you like. And all you have to do is tell me that you want it.
Well,
and I'll take care of it.
And we had to work through a lot of that stuff at Neat, right? So two topics. One is there are 5 different types of packaging. And I'll get to that in a second. But the second one is, what's the best value for someone, right? And the OTAs go through, it gets very complicated with packaging. But what we wound up doing was we started looking at, there were various things. On a flight, it's total flight time generally. I mean, you can look at numbers of stops and things like that. Flight time's the easiest. Price is certainly a function of that. But you can also get into very nuanced things of, if there are connections, where are you connecting during different parts of the world, different seasons of the year? Do you really want to make that connection in Minneapolis or Detroit, or is it better to go Atlanta and Dallas when you're connecting in the, in the wintertime, right? Things like that. So, and you can look at flight delay. You can take all sorts of pieces of information, which certainly an Expedia or Google can go work with. But what we found, and still what groups don't do, is how you pair in car rental with air itineraries, because the reality is you can get a lower cost itinerary if you arrive at 4 p.m. Your flight comes in at 4 p.m. and you pick up your car and you depart at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? That's going to be a quote shorter, shorter rental period, versus if you arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning and drop it at 4 3 days later, that's an extra day of car rental.
Right.
But it's also a less of a day in the destination, right? So you have all these different factors of where are you going to stay? Do you want to be, do you want to be in a 5-star hotel or a 3-star hotel? What's the price? What's the number of dollars per star? How far is it from a focal point of view? So all those different factors, which really does get into a big data sort of scenario for that individual tied to that persona. What's the best thing? You need a lot of data to do that with. You need lots of people. The OTAs perfectly suited to deal with that kind of information.
Google and Facebook. I mean,
I'm sorry. That's the other part I wanted to throw in there, was that the metasearch conversation, because they do own the metasearch platforms, our own and mitigate metasearch platforms.
For sure.
So their connectivity value is also tied to all of that, because it doesn't mean to be distributed just on their platform. It's just the fact that they can aggregate those things.
Well, in addition, decisions like brand loyalty, like for me, I do not want to fly Spirit Airlines. I sometimes do though, because it is so freaking cheap, right? And you just look at it and go, crap, I'm gonna do it, right? But those are important, decisions and some people could care less. They want the low fare, or they don't care. Again, I'm giving us actually 2 presentations at the Wisconsin Lodging Association conference in early November. And my round trip airfare, I'm actually flying into Chicago because I got to go have a meeting there before. $86 round trip on American.
Wow.
Because they were matching Spirit.
Wow.
That's not often heard of. You don't normally get out of Dallas. Oh no, usually American, they get you by the whatevers.
American is following.
They don't often know that.
Unfortunately, you're in 37. You're in 37B, but other than that, you'll be completely fine.
Can't miss the toilet for that one.
Exactly. And who wants a reclining seat?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that's so overrated. That's overrated.
I do have a question. I don't want to downplay the importance of this, because what you're saying makes a ton of sense, Lauren. I completely agree. There's going to be a big shift there as we go forward that I think is important. The one question I have that I don't know the answer to, Robert, you might, Lauren, you might, is when we talk about the trips that guests take, this kind of brings it full circle back to what we started with today, is what percentage of the trips are packages? And I don't mean package sales truly, but like I take tons of trips where all I really need is a flight because I'm flying in, and and I'm going to stay at the airport hotel because it's right there, or the hotel that is across the street from my client, assuming the hotel isn't my client, right? Versus the package trip. I mean, is there good data that shows what percentage of the time? Because that is a guest behavior. It strikes me we don't see a lot of today. Now, maybe if it gets easy to say, okay, Google, book my trip, maybe that will be more of a thing. But at the moment, I don't see that I see it as an important piece of business, an incredibly important piece of business. But is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 50%? Is it 80%?
I just happened to have authored the chapter on packaging for Focusrite.
Well, there you go.
The unpublished online travel overview.
Fantastic. This is exactly.
So, unfortunately, I can't tell you the answer to that. No.
I will say this
right now, as a percentage of let's just talk about online travel.
Yeah.
Okay. Packaging is really what's booked online is only, it's under 5% of the total. It's like, yeah, 4.5%, something like that. It's not very big now, but if you're looking at multi-component purchases when you travel, it is huge, because we did a thing, actually, this is way back at Sabre. We were doing some analysis on car rental, and we discovered that 40%, or actually we were doing group strategy, looking at what we should be doing in the group market. And one of the things was kind of tangentially, just because we were asking about car rental too, it was just kind of in there. It wasn't like anything important. We discovered 40% of the people who travel for a group, like a conference or meeting, rent cars. And you go 40% rent, that's crazy.
Right.
But it's it's shockingly large. So outside of visiting friends and relatives, and I haven't really seen any numbers on really looking at who is doing multi-component purchases, but I would venture to say, if you really expand it, and again, when I was at Mark Travel, our strategy there was, how do you really extend that to door to door, right? How are you getting from your home to the airport? Are you parking it? Are you taking an Uber? Are you parking there? Are you going to be in the Admirals Club? How are you going to be going all the way through? I would say you start getting close to 100% of people having multi-component purchases, right?
Well, and that's
and transit in the destination, right? Your transfers from the airport to the hotel. It's everybody, and those
that's a place where the OTAs,
huge opportunities.
Well, and I'll take it a step further. I think it's a place where the OTAs can easily dominate. And let me say the OTAs, meta search, and the meta mediaries who may not be in the space right now.
Hotel brands could too, but
I don't think so.
But they don't have the business model.
Correct. That's the problem.
They don't have the technology backbone.
They don't have the technology. They don't have
too much.
They don't have the customer mind share. Like, customers don't think of them that way. So I would argue, and they shouldn't. Right.
Oh, no. I say they should. I disagree. Because if you go back to the beginnings of the hotel industry on the Roman highways, right? That little innkeeper was the expert.
But I knew you went back a ways, Robert. I didn't know you go back that far.
Good Lord, man. Are you kidding me? He's been doing this so long, it was still 1 seasons.
Wait a minute. Did you oversell Bethlehem? Were you the one that oversold Bethlehem?
It is. That's right.
He was in it so long, it was 2 seasons.
Ice Age and no Ice Age.
That's right. I am a student of the industry.
Oh, that's worth it. That right there is worth the whole day right there.
But
I digress.
Who was the most important person in a town? Probably, arguably, the mayor or the sheriff. And you could probably go back and forth on that. But boy, number 3 was probably the innkeeper, and he knew exactly what was going on with the mayor and the sheriff. Right?
How am I going to write these notes? How am I going to write these story the show notes talking about
innkeeping? Innkeeping, the world's second oldest profession.
Unless you talk to the innkeeper's wife, who has the oldest profession.
Hey. So,
God!
But I would make the argument that people staying in a destination want to know the really cool, great things that they can do. And nobody should know that better than the innkeeper. Certainly, Airbnb has been leveraging that with Airbnb hosts.
Right? Sure.
Of how to live like a local, all that sort of, here's the really cool stuff that's not in the guidebooks, not on the whatever.
Robert.
That's what they should be doing. And very honestly, I think I don't know, maybe I can talk about it now. Maybe I'm talking completely out of turn and violating an NDA. But I worked with Marriott and going to Switchfly before they went to the, there's Seth. Seth is coming in here. It's the, it's the NDA enforcer. Sorry.
That's what to say. Is there a little microphone on Seth?
But part of the strategy with Marriott at that point was to really, how can they engage their their most loyal guests and expand that and give them better experiences. Now, Marriott didn't really get there, right? And it was a push even when we were doing the strategy to really look at how, could they even do it? But it was an idea to go down that way. In that case, I think they've kind of said, you know what, putting this stuff together in packaging, Expedia has a lot more content in terms of airlines. They've got, I don't know, at least a couple hundred airlines in there. They've got all the car rental places. They've got a lot of destination stuff. And for Marriott to do that themselves, that's not going to work. They've got to partner with somebody. Right. Why don't you partner with somebody who's got all of it? Right. Sort of thing.
That's my point.
Unfortunately,
we're conflating two things, Robert. If I can jump in for 1 second.
Just real quick.
I'll let you finish. I promise.
Just real quick, because Neat Group. Because Neat Group
give up, you lose.
No, I won't. I learned that because Neat Group's business model changed. That was Neat Group's business, was to be that marketplace where you would have completely agnostically all the supply from anything to be, to bundle with anything else, because that was dead. Yeah, now there's a gap in the market, and that's the problem.
And that's exactly. I agree completely. I think when we're talking about where I think the hotels should play and where the hotels shouldn't play, we're conflating two different ideas here, right? One is who should be the destination expert. That is absolutely something where the hotels need to continue to hold that view, because I think you're exactly right. That's what Airbnb is trying to do with hosts and experiences.
And the hotels are losing that.
And the hotels are losing that rapidly.
Outsourcing their concierge desk.
Exactly. Now, separate from that is multimodal travel. Right. And multimodal travel is the place where the hotels cannot win, and I don't even think should try. Right. That's where you need to partner with, somebody who's going to have all the inventory and all the content and all the different pieces. And it might be Google. It might be TripAdvisor. It might be Facebook at some point. And that, Lauren, to go back to our discussion of a couple of weeks ago, that's where I think Meta's got some real serious play. If we think about Meta, Robert's like, I'm done with y'all. The hell with it. got back to Roman times. Back before we had
back in time.
He's taking a step back to 2 seasons.
That was awesome.
The first time I said it was 1 season. So that one didn't fly, so I went with 2. But I think that's where the Meta capabilities become incredibly important, because it's a question of making sure that your inventory and your ARI information, your availability rates, inventory, etc., is available on any of whomever becomes the multimodal champion, whether it's Google or Facebook or Kayak or Expedia or Booking or TripAdvisor or whatever. You want to make sure your inventory is available to those guests who want to put a trip together those ways, particularly when it gets as easy as saying, okay, Google, I want to make this trip, make it so, and it just happens, right? And I think that's going to be incredibly important.
No, I agree with you. The only other answer I would add to now that Robert's not here is to say that I'm going to quote Darlene Rondeau. She made this statement of when we had her as a guest, and I thought I love using it because it makes so much sense to me. People asked if Henry Ford, if you have, why didn't you ask your customers what they wanted? And he said, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Right.
And to your point about packaging, it's kind of like we don't know what we don't know about what we want.
Right.
And you're right. I think hotels should be, and they've squandered it. To Robert's point, they've squandered their value proposition of being the destination authority.
Right.
They've let it go away. They've costed it down to where it's not a part of their process. But by the same token, I don't think they're capable of doing what you're saying of multimodal travel. I mean, even if MetaSearch offered, even if they went to Marriott and in a golden platter said, whoever MetaSearch provider, gave to them and said, we're going to give you all the connectivity in the world you want for all of these other mode platform. It's a confidence issue. People are not going to trust Marriott to give them the optimum opportunity because they think it'll always be biased to where Marriott has the resources to provide service.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah, and to that point, I think what really boils down to, and this goes to an article that I kind of poo-pooed, but you all said was kind of not as bad as I thought it was, and that it was Hyatt's shift on their membership reward program.
Right.
To me, it's lipstick on a pig. Yes, it's great that they changed the name. Yes, it's great that they, well, it may be not a pig of a program, but it's still in the same process that all membership reward programs on. Carrot on a stick, points of reward. Now, granted, they haven't revealed all of the membership benefits that are going to be rolled out with this process, but it's still based on one fundamental thing, and that is the more you do business with them, the more you're rewarded. And so you have to make those things happen. The same redemption schedule is still in there for the gold program as it is with this new program. So it's really not different. It's just being called different, and they might add different things to it.
Well, and they're making it easier to understand. They're making it smarter. They're making it more functional.
To that, it's helpful.
I mean, obviously, you all know my relationship to Wyndham. I am a Wyndham shareholder. You look at what they're doing with Wyndham Rewards. It's been tremendously successful to the point where they're extending it to the timeshare elements and things that they own as other travel assets that make a lot of sense. And I think that the more you can do loyalty programs, and I hate the fact that they're called loyalty programs. Let's call them what they are. Rewards programs are a cost of doing business today. That's simply the reality of our industry. And if people can't understand the benefits and the rewards that they receive, you're gonna struggle in the marketplace, because I can go over here to somebody else's where the rewards program is very clear and I know what I'm getting. So I mean that to me is absolutely the thing. And by the way, just to your point about the multimodal travel and why Marriott wouldn't be good at it, again, going back to my NEAT group experience specifically, we did studies. We did user studies on the brands that we sold at the time where we were using NEAT group at a hotel company. And most people were like, the trust thing that you said is absolutely true, that they thought maybe I can get better information somewhere else because maybe there's a better option. And B, for most people, it's just not what they think of Marriott doing, right? They think of Marriott, I want a hotel. They think of multimodal travel, they're going to think of somebody else. And changing people's minds about that is an incredibly expensive proposition and probably not worth the cost for most hotel companies.
Yep. So, we said nice things about you, Robert, and I agree with you on a lot of stuff.
By the way,
am I back? Can you see me now?
Yeah. What happened to you?
Back.
I was going to
because you did an NDA.
I couldn't find like some zombie mask and go zombie apocalypse. But
Seth was
did the NDA
no,
catch up with
chewing through.
I had a little. Apparently, my power bar. The light must maybe Seth turned off the power.
Seth was chewing through a cable.
Yeah.
I do have to point out, and by the way, I apologize. I know I haven't been here the last couple of weeks. It is pushing 1 o'clock. I have a firm commitment at 1:15, so unfortunately, I'm going to need to roll.
And I've got
quickly.
a firm commitment at 1.
Ah, well, there you go.
Well, everybody's just firm about their commitments today, and
That's right.
There's so many jokes there that we're going to let go.
We're not going to let those happen. All right. Hey, I did send a whole list, and for those who are watching the show and the recording of it and so forth, there will be in the show notes of topics that we did not get to. One that I would like to get a follow-up on, or maybe we should roll it to the next show. We keep saying we're going to roll something to the next show, and we miss some of the really good ones like that. We don't write them down. I try to keep track of them. I was asked from a friend and a potential client, I guess, that to compare guest messaging services. And I accumulated a list together that'll be in the show notes. Everything from Glowing, which I did not even know existed, Try Whistle, which I heard about, Zingle, Bembra, Checkmate, which I knew about, Zoozap, Time Global, which I never heard about, and then, of course, Alice.
Of course.
But all of them I put links to in the show notes. I would love, gentlemen, your feedback on any of those, whether on a sidebar or whether we bring it up to the show topic next week. I'm hoping Ed will be back with us next week, because if anybody knows about this space in a closer proximity, he was just on the live digital summit that Leonardo hosted yesterday, in which Checkmate, Trust You was there, and of course they bought Checkmate. And so they were talking about that integration value, that they why they did what they did and how they did it. And I can tell you from just going through the websites and looking at them from a tertiary point of view, it really boils down to a conversation that we persistently have, and that is app or not to app.
Right.
because some of these require app engagement, that download of an app to be used effectively for what they say their services provide. And others are just like, no, we'll just integrate to everything everybody else is using, which I think is a value proposition to be decided on. But I'd love for you all to be thinking that we can carry that through next week if it's okay with you.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
On having that, because I think it's a valuable topic. People are looking at it. I condemn the fact that we as hoteliers don't really approach the in-house engagement at the same priority we do on the acquisition portion of engagement. So, and of course, the post-stay is even worse. So, I'm hoping that maybe the conversation will solicit more things. Was there any other things that you guys wanted to bring up? To your point, we're going to lose Robert to here now.
Pretty much now. So, no.
You're on my time. You got an hour, Robert, technically, but that's all right.
What?
Because it's 12 our time, right? Where are you right now?
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. It is at
right.
1.
I
you're 15 minutes
15
out.
East Coast time.
Yeah, you're 15 minutes out.
I got
so
minutes.
Tim, you lead. You got 15 minutes of your prioritization, or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever time we have left of yours. What would you like to throw to?
So one thing I would point out, I posted a link to a Skift article about Expedia and revealing its big ambitions in hotel services. That just is a follow-on to what we were discussing. That's probably worth checking out, and I would encourage people to look at in the show notes. Yeah, I think they're recognizing that they're not going to. They own Orbitz, they own Travelocity, they they have most of the hotel inventory you could possibly want to have, at least in North America.
They're still small. They're still a lot smaller than Booking.com in total.
In Europe, they're a lot smaller. Right. But realistically, most of their growth isn't going to come from the traditional ways they've pursued growth. And so now they're looking for other ways to be able to go to the street. And I think that's going to bear watching over time.
Yeah. They've built their business on acquiring traffic.
Right.
That was certainly the Orbitz and Travelocity, and it doesn't matter. Trivago, you just go venerate all the way down the list.
Right.
And now,
nothing out of anything worthwhile to buy.
Right, and I'm sure if there are, they've got joint venture with Despegar and things like, so they've got all this stuff.
Right.
But now it's how do you want fries with that?
Right.
It's going to be. Going to be the model.
I want to restate what I just said a moment ago, just so I'm very clear about this. I said they're running out of things that are worthwhile to buy. I'm sure they'll acquire things and the like. What I mean is they're not going to get 20% growth because they already own all the things. They're big enough that they already own all the things that are going to give them 20% growth. So now it has to come from exactly that. How do we get deeper into the other components? Yeah.
And they own the U.S. patent on dynamic packaging now that they own meat.
Right.
So they may also be able to use that defensively to keep people from.
I'm no expert on patent law or Neat Group. When does that patent expire? Because Neat Group was around for quite a while.
Oh no, a decade. Not an issue.
Not an issue in the short term. Okay.
50, 75 years. It's a long time.
Is it real? Oh wow, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So assuming that the next administration doesn't do away with software patents altogether, which is a possibility.
Tim, while I still have you, I'd love your feedback on just a couple of things real quick.
Let's talk politics.
What do you think about the current land? No. One is Snapchat. Two of the topics on the bottom were one was Snapchat feels more a lot like TV. That article, which was very interesting about Snapchat's move. We never really spent much time talking about the Snapchat glasses that are coming out.
Spectacles.
What that really, Snapcracle. But the article was interesting on something.
By the way, it's not Snapchat.
It's Snap Inc.
Not Snapchat.
It's Snap Inc.
Snap Inc. Right.
Snap Inc. So now this article is referring to the fact that they're getting into what's troubling is to TV shows. Now, it seems counterproductive because Snapchat is Snap Inc. is about short visualizations, but they're talking about making 8-minute videos, including reality shows, situational comedies, and things like this. And it goes, and at first you're sitting back and you push back going, "Oh, that's crazy." I can tell you, watching and making videos the way we do, after 2 minutes, you're beginning to look around the room to see whether you still want to watch the video. We do and have a short attention span. So 8 minutes of creating a show that you can get in and out of, all of a sudden turns into a scary proposition to longer shows that aren't doing short term.
Okay, so I'm going to say nah. Here's the thing. People, I'm going to use a quote here and, use this however you want. Size doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of the content.
Yeah.
Because at the same time people talk about short attention span and stuff, people also binge watch Mr. Robot. People also binge watch Game of Thrones. People also binge watch, take your favorite show. We're doing some video projects right now with a couple of clients, and what we have discovered, and this is partly apocryphal. I don't have tons of data, but I certainly am getting it from people who I trust and know things about this. Is the length is appropriate to the story you're trying to tell, and it's appropriate to the message you're trying to get across. If you're trying to fill 8 minutes because you think that's the right length for a video, but you really have 45 seconds of content, it's going to be a disaster. If you're trying to squeeze 8 minutes of content into 45 seconds, I won't say it's going to be a disaster, but it's not going to be as effective as letting it organically be 8 minutes would be. So I think we have to say, if you're a hotel and you're looking at doing video, don't worry about the length of the video. Worry about what story are you trying to tell and what's the appropriate length in which to tell that. And
Well,
if be 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, 60 minutes. Okay, great. But
and if you're a hotel, that's engaging with your customers on Snap's platform, boy, you better have something very unique, like a room with live entertainment, or something really cool from an F&B perspective, or whatever, because you are not going to be selling guest rooms to out-of-town guests unless it's for a particular event or showcase, or God knows what. The groups that are now, the brands may be able to do something with it, but it's all about relevance. A group that I think does an amazing job, the Milwaukee Bucks, do a great job with their thing, because they're little snippets, and they'll do things at training camps, and it's with the players, and it's to a select group of people who are very into that particular brand. They're already highly engaged, and you can get this insider behind the scene type stuff. That
you hit it right on the head. You hit it right on the head, because
so fashion brands.
Right, but here's the bane of the video. To both of y'all's point, Tim, excellent point about make the content the real driver to this, is don't fall into the same trap that Rich Media fell into when it was first used, where the pictures were to the owner's benefit. I want a portrait picture, I want a building picture. Nobody cares about those things. Don't make videos on what you think is interesting. Make videos on what your guests would find interesting.
Well, taking it back to what we started with this morning, what are they hiring the video to do? They, the customer.
Right. What are they using it for? What do they have it for? Absolutely.
By the way, there might be an opportunity to make some good short videos for not very much money, because there's going to be a whole lot of unemployed Viners now out there.
Yeah.
So I would expect some brands to go after that.
Oh, they will. But for that, and the other question, while I have you, Tim, real quick, is
Acorn. Before the Vine thing, though, but the other things that died, Meerkat, all these other things that were big new. Wow, look at this. Poof.
Well, look at Facebook Live. You can actually schedule now if you're a verified page, which I'm desperately trying to get to, because, well, anyway. So Acor and LinkedIn been working at it since September. They blended together. They're doing what's called Business Check. Which is, for those to look at the article later, is where when you travel to an Acor hotel, they've connected to allowing you to find out people that you're connected to via LinkedIn that are business relationships that are in your market to maybe reach out to, which I have mixed feelings on this. LinkedIn already does this for you if you use their other platform. And the other is that not everybody on LinkedIn is somebody you're doing business with, and maybe because you're business aware. So it doesn't isn't as helpful as it first comes off as. But anyway,
I've seen a couple different tools in this category. The first thing is, are people using them for business, or are they using them to find people to hook up with? Secondly, seriously,
or to find people to go sell stuff to, which is the downfall of LinkedIn.
You have the solo woman traveler who's a business person and the like. There tend to be some safety and security things there that they're going to be concerned about. Not that it is insecure or unsafe, but just that tends to be a concern amongst solo women travelers, generally speaking. So I think this is a problem in search of a solution. Excuse me. I think this is a solution in search of a problem more than it is a problem in search of a solution. We'll see. There's been a lot of apps to do things like this, and some have taken off and some have not. So we'll just, I think that's a wait and see.
Again, if Edward was here, he'd probably go over and say, if you had Salesforce, what would you use any of it for? I mean,
right.
You already have that information in your pocket while you're traveling.
LinkedIn, it's the same thing. People put, I do it, and I get a lot of flack for it. I post where I'm flying on TripIt, right? And it goes into my
stop that. No,
I know it's kind of annoying, right?
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah, I know. No, and I'm
now that I know it annoys you,
the number of times where people who I've either gone to college or whatever go, oh, you're going to be in town,
right?
I had no idea you were even there, right? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but again, the problem with LinkedIn is, again, a lot of it's a social media channel of just kind of the rampant narcissism. So people are on it to go sell stuff. The numbers of people who send me LinkedIn invites who have nothing to do with me, where I'm getting targeted, and they just want to sell some. There's no relationship. It's just you're a prospect in a funnel. That's not good. I think Core's doing this, and credit to them to go try to boost something in the business realm. But filtering who you want to know that you're in a town versus not knowing in a town, it's like, I don't know. It's like that's
right.
It's like when they had the things. Who had the table? Marriott was experimenting with the table with the lights in the lobby, where you go and put your little phone there and say how you were connected. It's like, who's going to do that? I want to know who these people are, and I don't want just. It's like Ned Ryerson and Groundhog Day.
Exactly. And again, it's a solution in search of a problem.
Right.
Yeah. It's a novelty at best.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to keep you on time, Tim. We're at 11 after. For those who want to reach out and know more about you, or to reach out to you to ask questions and so forth, how can they find you?
They can find me at timpeter.com for everything they could possibly need, or on Twitter using the handle at TCPeter, which I always call out because it's the only place where I'm not Tim Peter.
Mr. Robert Cole. I mean, Robert, you can hang for a few more minutes if you want to chat about anything else.
The only thing I wanted to talk about was Uber taking over the world.
Oh, that's right. You know what? So we're going to keep talking, Tim.
All right, gentlemen. You have
I don't want to lose.
You have a wonderful weekend. I expect I will be here next week. There is a very, very slim chance I might be hopping on a flight to WTM over in London.
So very nice.
Yeah, it's nebulous at the moment. Potential client opportunity. We'll see if it comes through or not. It's much more likely I will meet them later in the month elsewhere. But on the off chance I'm on a flight, I won't be here. But I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. And I will look forward to seeing you next week, assuming I'm not in the air.
No, I hope so too.
I'm assuming I will be here as well.
All right, awesome. Have a great weekend, guys. And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Tim. Thank you very much for your time today.
Bye.
Mr. Cole, you want to talk about Uber?
Oh, let me get two things. Actually, just a technical note. I think we should post all of our links into the chat, because otherwise, if you just post it, it disappears, right? It isn't in a...
Yeah, you're right. We should probably do a duplicate of it being in the chat room. I put them in the show notes and on the page so that everything we have, but then they would have to, that would be the only source for them. So I can easily, we should do, I'll put the links in the future. We'll put the links through onto the chat as well.
Okay, I'm just pulling up a link here, which is to a little video. Actually, this is off of the Recode website. Great little website for people who aren't familiar with Recode. Cara Swisher and Walt Mossberg. All sorts of cool things going on in technology. But the link is for Uber delivering Budweiser using a robot truck.
Truck. Yep.
45,000 cans of beer. And basically what Uber's doing is, if you're a long distance truck driver, the days of your gainful employment are limited. So in this particular case, and the video is great. The guy drives the truck onto the highway, hits a button on the highway, goes, sits in the back seat and reads. Right. And it goes and delivers. And then when it's exiting the highway, he goes and grabs it and takes it over. That is the future. Uber is a logistics company. The amazing thing is that the technology is provided by a company called OTTO, which Uber acquired. And for the trucks, it's a $30,000 retrofit. So you pay $30,000 to eliminate your labor cost, right? And so is that going to happen immediately? No, there are going to be drivers there but you can see where, this is headed. And then so the second one is, if I can find it, hang on, oops. Where is my little link?
Did you send me an email though, didn't you? I think
I did send it an email. I just have to go grab. There it is. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong email. The second one is, there's an interesting 99-page white paper which I have not read yet, but from Wired, another great publication for what's going on in tech, on Uber having flying cars within a decade. So,
wait a minute, I got to find this article here. I'm looking for your email that you sent me.
It's called Elevate, and it's a thing. So it's inside Uber's plan to take over the skies with flying cars. So basically, when you look at this, the disruption. I mean, people are really looking at disruption within travel. This is going to be very, very large, because I think from the car standpoint, it really does wind up being, personalized travel, right? In terms of whatever it is, but you're going to be looking at, you don't have to own a personal vehicle any longer. And certainly, do you need to book an airline seat? I don't know. Sort of thing, but doing it, you start looking at Uber managing logistics, and it's how do I get from point A to point B in the easiest way possible. And Uber is all over that, because it's not just moving goods if you're Budweiser, but moving people from a taxi company. They aren't really doing cross destination sort of travel, but you can connect the dots.
Well, you can imagine that Uber's going to go over and eat up Zipcar and eat up Car2U and all these other
every rental car company. Why? I mean, because unless the rental car companies decide to be the fleets that own the cars that Uber winds up distributing, which is a crappy business for a rental car company to be in. But you also see why Toyota, Volkswagen, BMW, all these groups are developing autonomous vehicles, and they are to be fleet vehicles, not to go be necessarily. Can the consumer buy it? Yes, I'm sure. Can the consumer ultimately afford the insurance to be able to drive their own vehicle? It's going to be the tax is going to be your insurance for wealthy people to be able to really
Well, and that's the other part to it too, is that you think about the engagement of why it's all being done. We had this discussion, which I thought was fascinating, where we talked about the fact that why are all these major car manufacturers doing this fleeting, is because one day I might need a pickup truck. So that's what automatically pulls up to my front door for the day, because that's what I need to move something. The next, I want to go over and go on a fun ride with my wife only, and not with a big family. So I get a nice little sporty two-seater to bring us somewhere.
And why pay $200, $300 a month for something that you only use X percent of the time? And again, it fights against the public transportation thing of, boy, should I go and schedule and wait for a bus and things like that. And let me tell you, where I live now in Dallas, getting to DFW Airport is kind of easy. I can take a short walk, which it's probably 10 minutes. It's not very far away, but I can walk down to the train, get right on the Orange Line, and again, I then kind of wind up. What? University of Dallas.
Oh, you're right towards the end of the line. You're right next to the airport almost.
Oh, yeah. And 25 minutes later, I pop up. Now, again, the problem then is when you get to DFW Airport, you're at Terminal 1, which is at the far end of,
but you get inside.
And then you got to go up on a little bus to go around if you're going to Delta down to Terminal.
No, don't do that. Oh, no, do this. Okay.
Or you can go in through security.
Right.
Yeah.
And take the SkyTree.
If you have your Delta pass, right? If you have your Delta boarding pass, you can go into security through TSA security into Terminal Terminal A and go through. Yeah.
Right. At gate 15, the TSA entrance is there. The
Right.
SkyTrain is at gate 21. So you take a right,
Yep.
go right up to the SkyTrain. It takes 22 minutes to get to anywhere all the way around. 22 minutes total.
I thought it was like 9 or 11 or something. I think it's even less.
Well, no, to go to each terminal, it only takes a few minutes. But
Right.
to go the whole circle all the way around, it takes 22 minutes.
The whole circle. Got it.
Yeah. So even if you're in D terminal on the other side, well, you don't even have to. You just take the opposite train. You don't even need that. I'm just saying it's a big loop. But it only takes to do the whole walk from getting out of the train to get to getting on the SkyTrain is 22 minutes.
Right.
That whole getting there and getting through the TSA security and then on the SkyTrain and up is 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I mean I did that too because I take it from Terminal N Parker Road here and that's my closest. Right. I drive down and take it there and it takes me an hour and a half train ride.
Right.
But it's only $2.50 for the ride.
Right.
And then I get out at Terminal A. Walk right in the door, go up the elevator, go to gate 15 TSA, go to gate 21, hop on the SkyTrain, and go to the next terminal if I need to.
No, and since I haven't been living in Dallas that long this time, we've done it on the American trip. When we did Delta, though, it was also very early in the morning, like a 6 a.m. flight or something like that. Forget it. Took Uber. Yeah.
Well, because there's no train.
Yeah, there was a train, but it was just like. Because it's down from 1 a.m. until 4 a.m. or something like that.
Right. See, I can't take the train when it's too early of a flight because the train doesn't start early enough for me to make it on time for the flight.
Right.
And then it's a huge Uber trip for me because it's usually $100 plus to get from where I'm at in Allen to the airport.
Yeah.
But and the other on weekends too. Weekends are weekend mornings are a pain too because the train doesn't start. But I love the train going over there. I just put in the earbuds and listen to some podcasts. But but it's true about the cars, the autonomous cars and stuff like that, and probably traffic's going to improve because God knows it.
Oh, absolutely. I should find. I've got a Deloitte study went through this. This is maybe a year or two old, but basically they were saying ultimately there's no need for about 94% of the cars or something like that. I mean, it's really and the key is how do you need it for peak demand. Right, that's going to be the really interesting thing. And when you start looking at surge pricing, that is going to be. I mean, talking about the elections and things like that. The elections 4, 8, 12 years from now are really going to be the haves versus the have-nots. If you can afford surge pricing to go where you want when you want, it's going to be very different. That whole dream of owning your own house and having your own car and all that America is really fundamentally getting disrupted, right? So it will be a very, very interesting change. But actually, just getting on it's not really a political thing, but Scott Galloway with L2 does a great little video thing, and one of the things that he weekly that I listen to religiously, but one of the things that he's been talking about is that advertising is the new tax for people who can't afford to buy subscriptions, right? So, so if you can afford,
it's very accurate.
Can afford $10 a month of Netflix, you don't see any ads, sort of thing, right? And you just kind of go through between paywalls and all sorts of other things. That's like, advertising is going to suddenly be for groups of people who can't afford to avoid it, right?
Right.
Which again, societally is a very interesting, different dynamic, which will wind up changing marketing dramatically. So
I'm just thinking 10 days we don't have to worry about listening to political. Although I got to say, because Texas is so one way on politics, we don't get as near as many political ads as other states. I mean, when I was just down in Florida for September, I mean, good God, it was like, shut the freaking TV off, everything. And if it wasn't national, it was local.
Right.
And it's like, for God's sakes, it's just annoying as hell. Yeah. But it goes back to what you say on Facebook. By posting a political opinion does not sway anybody else's mind politically, said anyone ever. It's like, just because you say politically you like something on Facebook doesn't make me go, let me think of it that way. No, it's an unnecessary conversation in some of those forums. But anyway.
Yeah, no, and it's
I digress.
But it's interesting, and I do. I get engaged in the political one, and especially what I've been doing recently is just calling out blatant falsehoods on both sides, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not one-sided. I mean, it's
Both sides are doing
it's
exactly the same thing. There's a model. Yeah, there's a model.
The unfortunate part is people begin to believe it because they see it on Facebook as being a point of fact. They give it the deference that they do a news feed. It's like, no, on news feeds, you actually have to be able to support with 3 independent sources the context that's being presented, or they get in trouble.
But what's a news? But the question is now, what's a news feed, right? Because is Breitbart a news feed? No, it's not.
But right? Yet, so what was the stat? 64 or 66% of people are getting their news from Facebook first.
Oh yeah, no. Facebook in terms of the little trending. What do they call it? It's a little column on the right, like the what's trending is huge, and it's tailored to your specific needs. It's not exactly what the what the other folks are necessarily seeing. So it's crazy. So it's going to be some interesting times with the polarization. Yeah, and the number of it's actually interesting though. There are quite a few undecided voters, but I think it's not because they're one party or the other. They just don't like either candidate, right? They're trying to figure out what the heck.
For people like me, I've never gotten into a poll or anything like that because one, I would refuse if anybody even asked me that question. It's like I'm not here to tell you what I think I'm going to be voting for. I'm just one of those people. It's like, look, voting for me is something that I do. I don't try to press my opinion on other people. I actually try to listen to other people's opinion to see whether or not I'm believing my own bullshit because it's my own bullshit.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I've already voted, so it doesn't matter.
And I'm going to go. I'm trying to get into early voting too. I just now that back from Vancouver, I want to go find the early vote takes because I don't want to have to mess with this. I'm pretty clear on who I'm thinking about.
But I kind of look and tying this back into hotels and marketing and things like that. I mean, a lot of these political campaigns are straight out marketing, right? It's how you persuade people to alter their behavior and to do one thing versus another. And there's some really scary sorts of things in terms of what's being presented that people then accept as fact to be able to do it. So I don't know if people are engaged enough into travel and that sort of thing for it to really sway people, one way or the other. But I think you're going to start seeing more travel group, start making outlandish, unsubstantiated kind of content creation sorts of things from pseudo news third parties. So it's not. I mean, Wendy Perrin's a good friend of mine. Wendy, when she was at Condé Nast Traveler for whatever it was, 25, 28 years, every hotel she stayed in, she never announced herself, right? She went in anonymously. She used her husband's name, not her, her name, that sort of thing. Nobody knew who she was, so she could have a typical experience as opposed to saying, hey, hi, I'm Wendy. We'll give you the suite. So she could have used it for, that's journalism. Versus what happens now is more, either you can get more stuff as kind of the blogger, I'm a blogger. Are you going to take good care of me perspective? Or are you then going to start putting things out that are really, inaccurate, non-factual? Right. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot more. I did a 5-part T-News series on fake review spam in 2000, well before it became popular.
But you can go to Fiverr and have 5,000 people say whatever they want.
Oh yeah. I mean, all that's and there are much more evil things even that going on.